This is Pastor Marquise Franklin from New Creation Christian Center presenting to you a word for today by Ernest Faye. We pray that these short devotionals will impact your life. Now let's tune in.
Luke 16 verses 1 through 13. And I'm going to read this in the New King James, and I'm going to read it in the Message Bible as well, as the Message uses more modern language. The Message is good for some things, not good for everything. But it's more of a paraphrase, it's not a translation. He also said to his disciples, there was a certain rich man who had a steward, and an accusation was brought to him that this man was wasting his goods. So he called him and said to him, what is this I hear about you? Give an account of your stewardship, for you can no longer be steward. Okay, so let's set the scene here. So this steward, who was the manager of this person's household, was accused of being dishonest or wasting his goods. So he was going to be fired, basically. So he says, give an account, which means, let me see what you've been doing. Okay? So that's what's happening. So the steward says to him within himself, what shall I do? For my master has taken the stewardship away from me. I cannot dig. I am ashamed to beg. Then he says, I have resolved what to do. When I am put out of the stewardship, they may receive me into their houses. So he called every one of his master's debtors to him and said to the first, how much do you owe my master? And he said, 100 measures of oil. So he said to him, take your bill and sit down quickly and write 50. And he said to another, how much do you owe? So he said, 100 measures of wheat. And he said, said to him, take your bill and write 80. So the master commended the unjust steward because he had dealt shrewdly. For the sons of this world are more shrewd in their generation than the sons of light. So let me read this from the Message Bible, the last part mostly. The manager said to himself, what am I going to do? I've lost my job as manager. I'm not strong enough for a laboring job, and I'm too proud to beg. I've got a plan. Here's what I'll do. Then when I'm turned out into the street, people will take me into their houses. Then he went at it, one after another. He called in the people who were in debt to his master, and he said to the first, how much do you owe my master? He replied, 100 jugs of olive oil. The manager said, here, take your bill, sit down here, quick now, write 50. The next he said, and you, what do you owe? He answered, 100 sacks of wheat. He said, take your bill and write in 80. Now here's a surprise. The master praised the crooked manager. And why? Because he knew how to look after himself. Streetwise people are smarter in this regard than law-abiding citizens. They are on constant alert looking for angles, surviving by their wits. I want you to be smart in the same way, but for what is right, using every adversity to stimulate you to creative survival, to concentrate your attention on the bare essentials so you really live, and not complacently just get by on good behavior. Now, this is an important story, and it's an interesting story because in this story you can see a person who is about to lose everything. All right? He's about to lose his job, so he's talking about, well, what kind of work can I do? I'm not a good ditch digger. He said, I don't dig, and I'm not going to beg. So instead, he cheats his master. That's what he did. His master was owed 100. He said, well, okay, strike out 100 and only put 50. And he says, you owe him 100. Okay, strike out 100 and put 80. So he cheated his master, but his master commended him. And in the Message Bible, he says he was shrewd because he looked out for his own interests, and he was therefore smart in that way. And then he tells us to be smart in righteousness way. But let me just see if I can bring this back to the fear element. He was afraid of losing his job. So instead of trying to do something honest, he did something crooked. And he thought because of that he would survive. And this is so important. His fear of losing his job motivated him to do more wrong. And don't we see that happening all the time? People see things and they get into a circumstance or a situation, and especially when it comes to money, people tend to do things to get money that they would never do if they didn't need money. And so they do an illegal act. They, sell. There's a series on people who go to prison abroad because they were trying to smuggle drugs in for a friend of theirs. They weren't drug smugglers, but the friend said, well, just put this in your bag and bring it across the border, and they're not going to check you because you don't look like a drug smuggler. And it turns out they get caught and they go to prison in a foreign country, and it's not a nice story. But all because they were trying to make extra money doing something they knew they shouldn't have done. Why? Because fear of not having enough motivated them to do the wrong thing.
We pray that this message has encouraged you today. And we invite you to join us Saturday nights at 7 p.m. in the Emerald City Bible Fellowship building located at 7728 Rainier Avenue South, Seattle, Washington, 98118. Once again, that's Saturday nights at 7 at 7728 Rainier Avenue South, Seattle, Washington, 98118. If you have any prayer requests, comments, or questions, visit our website, newcreationwa.org. And on there, we have our links to our Facebook and Twitter sites as well. We would love to hear from you. God bless you.